Hello, everyone. This is Matthew Foreman, and I'm the blogger on modernaesthetic.com. It's actually my website, my musings and different things, philosophy. So just a little bit quickly about myself, because I'm going to get into this video um, on zone poker for Bovada. I played poker for a long time. It's been about 15 years. I started before the major poker boom in 2003, playing limit hold'em. I was only 20 years old at the time, and then as I got older, poker drastically changed, and I stopped playing at the games that I was playing at when I first started, which was all limit hold'em games with some wealthy restaurant owners in Rochester, New York, and I started getting in the online game, which is my favorite way to play poker. So, just show you quickly some of my results over the past. I started in May 6th of 2015, so it's been about 7 months I've been playing poker. Logged 741 hours, and in cash games, average $3.53 an hour, which is pretty modest to be honest. But I've been playing nothing but 25 max, no limit hold'em. So usually what I'll do is I'll have always two zone poker games, and then I'll have two regular six-handed no limit games, and that really just supplements my tournament play because I focus a lot on tournaments almost exclusively. For about 7 years, I was a strictly tournament player, and so the zone poker really just helps me kind of minimize the variance I have from playing tournaments, because it can get a lot of variance. So I'm going to go ahead and start up the zone poker. I know this is for new people who I don't mind targeting at all and getting real basic, because that's kind of my style. But this action may be too fast. But I'll try to explain it to the best I can, even sit out a hand or two if I have to explain something more in depth. So here in this situation, short stack raises. I got Jack 8 out of position. I'm just going to go ahead and fold it. Situation here, blind versus blind. I'm in the big blind. I'm going to make a raise. I have an ace high. Likely I'm ahead right now, but you never know what will happen. So he calls. I hit my bottom pair of a 3. Probably still ahead if he leads out. So he checks to me. I'm just going to go ahead and bet it. Hopefully I can just take this down right here, which I do, so that's good. Would have hit 2 pair on a turn, interesting enough, but you want to... Main thing is taking down a lot of uncontested pots. That really helps you, winning small pots, and it almost, gives you a cushion to when you do play big pots. So here, Jack's under the gun. I'm going to go ahead and raise. Over at this first table 1 here, top 2 pair, he called a bet, and now it's 3 clubs on the board. So I'm in an interesting spot. I'm going to go ahead and check it behind and just see what happens. So now actually that 8 brings a lot of stuff. Check to me twice. Now if he checked to me twice, he definitely doesn't have the flush. Could have backdoored a straight, but I'm just going to go ahead and bet it and just see what happens. So he folds ace queen. He had the ace of clubs, so I let him, give him a free drawing card. Alright, so the situation down here, Jacks, this guy only has $7, so just going to go ahead and bet half the pot here. If he shoves me all in, alright, so it's just a call. If he checks to me, $4, $11 in the pot, he only has $4 remaining. I'm just going to go ahead and bet him all in. If he has me beat, then, well, he probably would have paid off in that situation. You might even got to pay off with an ace high. So I think it's a pretty good bet. The one beautiful thing about Bovada, I say beautiful for somebody who's looking to make some extra money, is this is really a major sports book, and poker is not something that they advertise as often. As I say that I'm raising Jack 10 suit on the button and I get a fold, so steal the blinds there. But it's a major sports book, and they really advertise sports betting. So a lot of times people will come and they won't really have a knowledge of poker or a baseline of what's going on, and they'll make money playing different casino games or betting sports, and then they'll come back and just want to have a good time playing poker. And that's really opportunities to make money, because there's a lot of gambling that happens on this site. Some things that I want to mention that you really want to look for in terms of poker, obviously you're looking for any advantage, and everyone's heard that tell. And what a tell is when somebody gives away the strength of their hand, essentially. Um, what I'm really looking for, anyone that does not have the full amount of chips in play that they potentially could have, I usually will label them as a weaker player. I mean, that's not always the situation. They may have just lost a big hand and could not have reloaded in time. But I generally feel if there's a regular player that plays this every day that really knows what they're doing, for the most part, they're going to be loaded up. In this game, $10.25, excuse me, 10 cents, 25 cents, you can start with up to $25. So you can have 100 times the big blind being 25 cents. So if I see somebody that really has a short stack, I'm usually just going to go under the assumption that they're just a casual player that's kind of having fun. All right, so here, ace 9, no piece of that draw, nothing really going on. This is a check and fold situation. 8-7 over here. If I get a raise here, I'm not going to defend this blind. I just don't really see the value in doing that out of position with that hand. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my fold now and start the next hand. The beautiful thing about zone poker, you're going to see a lot more hands than what if you'd have played a traditional poker game. Because as you see, I can fold now and immediately fold. I don't have to wait for the remaining players to finish their hand before the next hand is dealt. So like a situation here with 2-8, if I get a raiser from anybody, I'm going to go ahead and fold. Luckily for me, no raise, and I ended up flopping top and bottom pair. So this is a pretty strong hand here. The only thing that really beats me is 8-4, which he likely doesn't have, because who would play that? Or if he just decided to limp on the button with a pocket pair and flop the set. So as I expected, I was ahead there, and I think I'm almost always ahead in that situation. So yeah, again, Bovada is a major sports book. There's a lot of money on this site. However, the popularity of poker is just not big. I know a lot of people in America are still kind of down on the fact that Full Tilt Poker, Poker Stars, Party Poker, some of these major sites that we were able to previously play on is no longer an option for us. So Bovada Poker, I still feel like there's a pretty decent amount of money to be made. As was shown by my spreadsheet, I've actually am up about $8,000 since I started playing back in May, which is not a lot. It comes out to about $10 an hour, but to supplement my income, I work a full-time job, and as a something to do on the side while I'm watching a movie on Netflix or got something else going on, it's definitely better than getting a part-time job. Especially just the fact that it's very convenient. I can jump on my computer and play. So, I can listen to podcasts, listen to audiobooks, things like that while I try to make some money online. So it's very convenient. Obviously, I actually for the last 3 years now have not had a car. So getting a second job would have been very difficult for me. So this helps out a lot. So getting back just to the strategy here, King 6 on the button. I'm just going to click the fold now and move right on. A7 suited under the gun. Going to just take a shot at raising this and see how this goes. Pocket tens. Good situation to raise. So of course the A7, I got called from two people. I'm just going to completely shut down. I really should not have raised that hand to begin with, in my opinion anyways. I know that I'm a very conservative player, and some people raise hands like that almost all the time. But in this situation, I tend to fold A7 even in a short-handed game. All right, so pocket tens down here, very good situation to set mine. With a 3-better and then a caller out of the blind, I don't like my hand for it being good, but it's possible that I could be ahead right here. A lot of random hands I see people calling raises with. I still don't like this enough to go ahead and bet. With that 2 coming out and pairing, if it gets checked to me again, I'm going to go ahead and bet this. There's still a range within this person's range that he could have 3-bet and be scared of. Queens, jacks. he could be trapping with pocket kings. It is a board with a flush draw, so I don't really see that happening too often. One feature with these zone poker, if I want to see what happens with the continuing the hand, I can click sit out next hand and then fold. He got a fold from both people. You know, I may have been ahead there. That's a very tough situation, however, and I tend to situations like that just kind of get away from my hand. Could have called, seen a river. If he would have bet out again on the river, just got rid of it. But we'll see how. I'd like to see, you know, what happened in that hand. Unfortunately, there was no other caller, so it's just a situation where if he had me beat, it's a tough situation for me. Obviously, a multi-way pot, and I could have really justified betting that flop. Probably should have, to be quite honest, and it may have turned out to be an opportunity that I missed because it's possible that everyone would have folded. He might have raised, maybe 3-bet me with a hand like pocket nines, pocket eights, and I was ahead of him. Well, excuse me, pocket nines would have flopped a set, I believe, but let's say pocket eights or pocket sevens, hands that people would 3-bet with, and check the flop and then bet the turn when everyone showed weakness. So it's very possible. Queen Jack in second act, I know a lot of people would potentially raise that. I've been getting away from raising the hands like that, just because the action comes so fast that you can really wait for a strong hand in zone poker, and not really gamble or get in there with hands like that you really have to draw to, really speculative type hands, unless I know there's really good odds. Alright, so Jack 7 suited. Again, I'm just going to fold now and move right on to the next hand. 10-6 on the button, same situation. Alright, so Ace-King, this is definitely a playable hand. I'm going to go ahead and raise this. Two people behind me folded, so I'm going to have best position for the whole hand. And I get one caller here. Now, this is a very, very strange flop. Obviously, very draw heavy, 8, 9, 10, all connected with 2 diamonds. I'm going to go ahead and make one continuation bet. And if I get called here, I'm really just going to shut down unless something beautiful happens, which... Alright, so he went ahead and raised me. The reality is I have no pair. I have no good draw. I just got Ace-King. Even if I hit my ace, I could be drawing dead here against Queen-Jack. He could have a set. He could have 2 pair. He could have Ace-10, you know, so if I hit my ace, it makes him 2 pair. So it's just, in that situation, that's a fold all day. I can't really justify calling there. Even a draw to another for such a cheap amount. Alright, so I just went ahead and topped off my money back to 25. When I get a little bit lower, I want to have the maximum amount at all times or more. Obviously, over here, I've upped some money, so I'm up to $30.14. So I can't reload here, but I want to have as much as I can, just in case something happens and I get all in and I have the best hand. So I got pocket kings in the small blind. I don't like the position, obviously, but with pocket kings, position doesn't really play out as often in terms of what you want to do pre-flop. So I raise, and I'm going to go ahead and bet this out, although this can get very tricky. I find that playing one pair of hands and no limit is very tricky, but I'm going to sit out just so I can discuss that hand. Playing one pair of hands was the toughest transition for me because I played limit Holdem for a long time before I got into no limit. And a lot of what happened in limit Holdem, you know, you bet if you got raised, you were still going to pay off all the way to the river just because there was so much money in relative to how much you could bet. So in a situation like that, if it was just a fixed limit game, let's say 25 cent, 50 cent, by the time we got to the river, there's going to be $5 in the river, and you're just going to bet 50 cents to win 5. You got 10 to 1 odds. You essentially have to have the best hand better than 1 out of 10 times in order for that to be justified. So no limit, it's much different because they can bet bigger, bet stronger, push you out odds-wise. And with a pair like pocket kings, when you have one pair on a flop and the flop comes out with three scattered cards, kind of like this flop 2-5-8, they could potentially have a set, and it's very hard to read that situation. So I would have bet that flop with pocket kings, and then I would have pretty much just kind of bailed out on a turn and checked and called. And then even the river, if I checked and he made a really strong bet, I would have really had to see where I was at in the hand and thought about it deeply. I know there's no reads on anybody, so it's very tough to know what type of player you're dealing with. But for the most part, kind of the way No Limit Hold'em's evolved, especially online, people are just not getting a lot of money in unless they have, a set or two pair. And I've even seen hands where I've had bottom set where I've known for a fact, 10 years ago I was going to get all the money in regardless of what happened. And I really was able to put on the brakes and just minimize my losses because I knew the way the guy was betting that it was very likely he had top set or something even better than that. So it's just something to be mindful of. The one pair pocket pairs, even if you have an overpair, they're very difficult to play in No Limit. So you got to learn how to close the betting, how to keep the pot small, and really just make good reads on your opponent. All right, so here I decided to raise Queen 10, flopped a gut shot draw with two overcards. I'm going to go ahead and bet it. There is a flush draw, which makes more option for him if he decides to call. So turn card brings a 3. That really doesn't seem like it's going to change anything at all. And strange enough, this guy leads out and bets. 225 in the 567 pot, so I'm getting like about 3-1. I mean, I could have really just raised him there, seen where he was at. The problem with that is if he has a flush draw, he's probably going to call you anyways. And then if you get to the river, you got to make a really tough decision. Either to bet, bluff back at it or check it down. And obviously with Queen 10, you have really no showdown value on that river, even if he just has a draw. I mean, likely his draw is ace high flush draw or something similar to that, and he's going to have you beat all the time. So I just decided to fold that. I could have justified trying to bluff at him and jumping up on his flop bet, or even maybe flatting his turn bet there and waiting for the river to make a play on him. But I'm okay with folding there as well. All right, so ace king. So get a pot raise under the gun with I'm third to act with ace king. I'm just gonna go ahead and re-raise it, kind of clear out everyone else. Given how deep our stacks are, if this guy comes back over the top and re-raises me, I mean his re-raise is gonna look extremely strong because he's raising from under the gun, and I'm re-raising an under the gun raiser. So typically, if you're raising early position, your hand is very strong. So my hand looks even stronger. So by that logic, if it comes back to him and he re-raises me, I know he's got to have a very strong hand. And even as strong as ace king is, I think that's a pretty easy fold there. My experience is playing in these games, people are not getting too wild pre-flop, especially that deep. Again, my read on somebody who's very deep with 100 big blinds is they're probably a regular. Of course, a bad player can sit down with $10 and get lucky a few hands and build his money up to $30 and $40. That's going to happen. But if that was somebody that only had like $12 and he shoved all in on me, given the pot odds, because he's shoving for a less amount than what somebody with $25 would give me, given the pot odds, it makes it more justifiable with ace king. But just off of my read, I'm going to assume that it's not usually as strong a player. So this has really just been a baseline zone poker game. Again, I've logged over 700 hours playing zone poker. I think it's really fun. I think it's a cool concept. And if you're interested in playing this, Bovada Poker, this $25 max zone poker game is played at almost all hours of the day. So I don't have not going to bring this video too much longer, but I'll just show you some of the games for zone poker that are played regularly. All right, so King Jack with one limp. I should have really hiked that raise up to $1, but I was just kind of making a play on the limper, and you know, with him coming out with a weak bet there, I'm just gonna make another make a raise, and he folds. So usually that weak lead out bet. Sometimes they're going to be trapping you. It'd be a crafty player that might try to get you to do exactly what I just did. But my kind of feeling there is limp pre-flop and then call my raise and then let out for a quarter on the flop. I'm just going to raise them and try to steal the pot right there. So as far as the zone poker games, one thing that's good about them, you see how I can just sit out and come right back to my game. So obviously, you know, if you've got a hectic lifestyle or you need to run to the restroom or something like that, it's not like tournaments where you're invested. You can get up and go and do something, make yourself a sandwich, make yourself some tea if you're like me, or you run out and do something real quick. There is a couple of different limits of zone going on. So they have 5 cent, 10 cent, and then 2 cent, 5 cent. You know, so this would be a $10 max game, and this will be a $5 max game. Running pretty regularly around the clock. The 25 cent, 10 cent, 25 cent stakes, $25 maximum is running all the time. Very rarely have I ever seen that game not going. Also, the 50 cent dollar game, as you see, it has 50 plus players. That game is going all the time as well. So, you know, anytime you can get on, you know, before work for an hour, after work, you know, if you're in college and you just want to log some time between classes, it's really easy to get on and log a lot of hours. It's really fun. One thing I would say is just be very, very mindful of position and respect people's raises. Learn how to definitely control the size of the pot. So like, let's say if you have a hand where you have ace king and you flop ace 10-4, you bet the flop, brings like $5 in there, and you got $20 behind you. If you continue betting, you're really representing a lot of your stacks. So if somebody calls you, especially if it's a multi-weight pot, and you suspect they may have turned a 2-pair or flopped 2-pair, or flopped a set, a lot of situations you might want to check behind that flop, you know, just to control the size of the pot. And not only are you controlling the size of the pot, but if they do have a left hitter chasing a draw, let's say they have queen jack and they're looking for a gut shot and they just called you on the flop, which you'll see happen a lot. In that situation, you're going to induce a bluff on the river. So they might have folded to your turn bet and might lead out and try to bet and steal the pot on the river, and you can just pick off their bluff attempt by just calling. And of course, the trade-off is if you're not betting and they turn their draw for nothing, that kind of sucks. But there's a lot of value in just controlling the size of the pot. So as you can see by my spreadsheet, you know, $3.53 an hour, which is very modest, but as I mentioned before, I really just use this to supplement my tournament play, because I've very well seasoned tournament player. Used to play grind full tilt poker and Poker Stars. Had a handful of 5-figure scores back in 08, 09, and 07. So of course I'm really bummed that poker does not have the same effect in America as it once did in terms of the ability to play and make a lot of money. But the good thing is, you know, I moved up professionally and I'm doing other things. Poker does not control my life the way it did before. So I'm going to actually make a lot of videos on psychology and gambling, and hopefully, you know, if it's something that benefits you, definitely learning about it, because the mental aspect of this game is very, very, I mean, it's huge. It's everything. So, you know, just looking at my spreadsheet, if I'm a losing player in 25 max, you see I put down my gain here. But let's say I start checking my stats at playing Omaha high-low, I'm probably going to want to stick to that Omaha game, you know. And some people, they really let their ego get into it. I've stayed at 25 max even though I've made a lot of money. So I could have potentially jumped up to 50 cents a dollar, and I've actually heard that the play there is not even much better. But, you know, I'm comfortable playing this, and I'm really bankroll conscious because I've been through a lot of issues. So a lot of issues with bankroll in terms of overextending myself. So this is a good stake, and you can make a little bit of money. So if you haven't tried zone poker, I think it's a lot of fun. So again, MatthewModernAscetic.com. Check out my blog, and hopefully I'll hear from you.